I grew up bi-coastal between New York City and Washington State. So I definitely see the difference in the way, the climates are between one and the other. I mean, New York is a complete mess. Smog, bad odors everywhere you go. It's just ridiculous. You come here to Mason County and it's fresh and clean and beautiful. I think we need to take a common sense approach and continue the direction that we've been going, working with cleaner vehicles. We need to keep preserving the parks that we have, keeping them clean. I'm all for putting in sprinkler systems all over the place, and I think we need to keep everything green, and keep the community looking better. I don't see us going anywhere backwards. I don't see any, as far as city buying things going forward. It needs to always be more eco-friendly and that sort of thing. There's no way we need to go back to diesel trucks or anything like that. It's not going to get better if we do. So it's just a common sense approach to keep going forward with the way that things are going, with that sort of thing. I think it's just the best way to go.
Same question for you, Dean.
So courting, you're using your different commissioners, port commission, county commissioners, city commissioners, on courting businesses that have a proven track history in the green era, the field that we're going to have. The existing businesses that we have, we can take those and approach and see how they're being ran. Can we offer them some suggestions? Can we look at the waste products or the byproducts that are being produced? Is there something else that you can use that for? Back in the day, I had a business selling pellet stoves. Pellet stoves were something that was, the late 80s, early 90s, nobody knew what they were. There was 3 pellet mills in the entire continental North America. Now you can go to Walmart and get a bag of pellets. So that was obviously taking a byproduct and using it for something else that works. So taking those approaches with existing businesses, but also really courting those businesses that fit what we're looking for. Protecting our watershed. I grew up on the bay. How many people have beach rights and sell clams and oysters through Taylor or some other person? Those have to be protected. I'm back in the early, 20s and 30s where we had a big backup of that, and things got pumped into Goose Lake, things like that. We do not want to go back towards that direction. Having efficient, clean vehicles. I'm not so sure that I'm a firm believer in the electric car. I don't know if that's the direction that we want to go with it, because if you take a look and you see what goes into those. So just because something looks good on face value, it needs to be dug into in your due diligence to make sure that people are making the right choices. Now, sometimes my choices may not be the right ones, but mine are always the choices. It's the constituents that you have to listen to and which direction that you want to go. And sometimes that has to be molded. So involving more than one person in those decisions, I think, is of paramount importance.
Well, I grew up here in Shelton, so I've seen a lot of progress through the years. And being in the city government, I've seen businesses wanting to come to town, businesses that have come to town. I think it's very important that we carry on working alongside these businesses to keep everything clean. I'm sure that now that, like SPI, when they came, there were strict regulations on environmental issues with them. And the rest of the businesses that we're accepting and inviting into town, I'm hoping that we keep a close eye on their environmental stance also. Incentives, I believe in incentives. My son was a swimmer in high school, and I would say if you could get this, beat your record that you've already set, we'll go get General Tso's at Safeway. So that was an incentive there for him, but I believe that the city, whether small or large businesses, there should be maybe some incentives. I'm not sure what those would be. We'd have to put our heads together on that. Encourage recycling. If we keep throwing everything into our landfill, that's what causes the carbon emissions. One. So just encourage recycling, and maybe an incentive there also that the city could give. I'm not sure how that would be. We've never really talked about that, but recycling. Model community, housing for all. I share with a few people that sometimes I feel guilty getting in my bed at night and having a roof over my head. And there are people out there that just don't have a roof over their head or a bed to get into. So housing for all, I think, is one big thing that we can work on as a city. And affordable housing is capable.
Education and encouragement, I think, are the two biggest things that we can really focus on to lower that carbon footprint, to meet those type of goals. Letting people know all of the things and options that they have that will start to lower that. Taking your totes to the grocery store, having a meatless Monday, just different things like that that have known quick impacts that are actually fairly easy to adjust to and change to. Because it is challenging to get people to make drastic changes to where now no one's going to drive a car, we all have to take the electric bus. That's a drastic one that is hard to get a lot of people on board with, but if we educate all of the simple things that you can do that actually make such an impact, that's a great place to start. And then encouraging it, encouraging businesses to come here and put solar panels on the roof of their new commercial building where they can get 80+% tax credits for that within their first year. There's so many things that businesses either don't know about or aren't encouraged to do. They're sometimes encouraged to just come in and keep things that they have, keep inefficient heaters and coolers because it's too expensive to replace them and there's no encouragement or education to do so. So it comes down to encouragement and education.
Great. Is there something in the school district that you can tell us about that you're teaching the kids?
Well, we should be, and we are teaching climate remediation in both our science classes and our art classes, and unfortunately I couldn't get on the network to see actually what they are because the curriculum's all up there. But if you're interested in specific curriculum, I encourage you to visit sheltonschools.org so you can learn about that. But this is the thing that really gets me, Amy, is that a lot of kids are talking about this, and in fact it took AB to point it out to me for me to actually get it. But without climate change, everything else is moot. We can survive without Social Security or tax remediation or reform, but we can't survive in 115-degree heat, down here in Western Washington anyway. So this topic is on a lot of kids' minds. There was an editorial in the Olympian last week, I don't know if anybody saw it, from a high school contributor saying basically, thank you for passing this problem down to us. So once we get past all the well-deserved multi-generational criticism and start working together to do something about this, I think we'll all be better off understanding each generation's viewpoint. We need communication.
And I might add to that, the students do have, if you ever go to any of the science fairs that they have, there's always a lot of exhibits that work with examples of climate change and restoration, things like that. So there is a lot of that education going on. Speaking from a different perspective at the school district, even in the construction of the new buildings, part of the construction requirements are to have a certain point system for, I think it's called LEEDs, L-E-E-D-S. It's the system that has points assigned to various energy efficient and energy saving, and a district or anybody that's building a new building with this can select the points, the items that they want to build into their building. Well, you're only required to have X number of points to meet that requirement. Shelton School District went above and beyond that and exceeded that requirement in order to bring efficiencies and those sorts of things into the actual buildings. Things like, natural daylight and LED lighting, lights that are off when no one's in the room, coming on later, the requirement of trees and landscaping in the parking lot to reduce the thermal impact on the asphalt and things like that. So the district is very aware of requirements and meeting those future goals.
Just a few thoughts on this topic. So I think some of the things we've already seen is that keeping what we have and building on that is really important. So right now the City Council is looking at a park that we would be accepting from Capital Land Trust, which within its covenants requires that it be maintained as green space. We all know that the best way to take carbon out of the air is to have more trees, and to have protected lands is a great way to do that. And when we can partner that with things that have trails and low impact activities, it's a win-win. It's great for our kids and our community to have those spaces, but it also provides the impact of taking the carbon out. Some other small things that we can do are, as many have alluded to, changing out our light bulbs. When we're replacing fixtures, making sure we're choosing the low flow toilets, or how do we utilize equipment that makes better use of those. But some of it's just simple. Are we being efficient? Are we making the best time we can? Are we making multiple trips somewhere when we don't need to? And that's both for us as city staff, city employees, but it also goes to, as a community, are we planning for housing that is along transit lines? Are we planning for walkability to access restaurants and retailers and other activities? And I think that's something that we can incentivize. That being said, there are a number of partners throughout the community that do amazing work here. So PUD often has rebates. They have an amazing solar program. The WSU Extension Office also has a native plants guide, which allows you to choose plants for your yard or your business that are meant to be here and are a little easier to maintain. And some of those small steps, I think, really add up. It might be an opportunity to work with Catalyst Park Garden or the Hope Garden and look at a composting program. I think there's a number of things that we can do that, if everyone makes those small bits, will really see some drastic changes. And from a building side of things, not only commercial buildings, but residentially, are we being thoughtful about incentivizing people to build in a way that makes sense and is going to mitigate some of these issues? And so I think that we have a responsibility to look at what are things that we can do which are manageable, that don't discourage growth, but that are responsible and creating the type of vibrant city that we'd like to see. Thank you.